Hey, Anthony,
Yeah,
what do you think about Stephen Miller saying Trump has plenary authority?
I can't say I'm surprised that one of the most racist and fascist people in the Trump administration wants the president to have the complete power to enact his racist and fascist policies. But it's a little surprising that he managed to let that slip up on a CNN interview of all places.
What exactly happened and what is plenary authority?
Stephen Miller went on an interview Monday morning with CNN's Boris Sanchez, where he was being questioned about whether Donald Trump has the power to do a lot of the things he's doing regarding ICE policies, immigration suppression, and things like that. And Stephen Miller made a comment that under Title 10 of the US Code, the president has plenary authority, which is basically absolute power with no limitations, right? The authority that like a king or an autocrat would have. He mentioned that the president has plenary authority when it comes to ICE and immigration enforcement. And first of all, that's not true. There are very few examples of true plenary authority in the US government. One of the few examples is the presidential pardon power. But beyond that, the US government and our Constitution is set up to prevent plenary authority. The whole idea with the system of checks and balances is the idea that the power of a monarch or an autocrat is very dangerous and that it shouldn't be given to anybody. And so, with very few exceptions, it doesn't exist. And certainly, Title 10 does not give the president the authority to act as a king in regards to immigration matters, despite what Stephen Miller said. But that's not the real scandal in and of itself, right? He certainly said that, and he's in this case, he's kind of just saying the quiet part out loud, what all of the Republicans and MAGA and the racists and the fascists want. The real scandal is the fact that immediately after he said that on this live interview, he froze for about 15 seconds and was basically just sitting there quiet, blinking, moving his head a little bit in what seemed to be a situation where he was listening through his earpiece to counsel from whoever his advisors are. And after that 15 seconds, CNN went to commercial break and then came back and pretended like it was just a technical error. So, first of all, that's suspicious, right? Just the fact that he froze in the first place and stopped talking. This is clearly something that he wasn't supposed to say in the first place. It's perhaps showing their hand a little too much at this point when a lot of the Republicans still believe that the government is functioning as intended with checks and balances. If you go into conservative spaces, a lot of them still think that. And then on top of that, what's really suspicious to me is the fact that CNN basically covered up for him, right? CNN is supposed to be this very left wing liberal news source. It's in fact considered to be one of the most liberal news sources, at least by the Republicans, right? And they immediately went to break. They came back and pretended it was a technical issue. And then in follow up videos posted to YouTube of the interview with Stephen Miller, they edited out any mention that he made of this plenary authority, right? So CNN is also covering up for Stephen Miller and the Trump organization by editing out this very obvious and very serious error that he made in speaking. And while it's not surprising because CNN, like almost all the major news sources in the US, is now owned by Republican megadonors, it does go to show to the public just how corrupted our media has become, that they're editing out such a clear autocratic statement from somebody who has a lot of power in the US to enact policy against immigrants and other minorities and is using that power through ICE and through the Trump administration to cause real harm to those communities inside the US. And I think it's important that the American populace doesn't let this slide, right? We have one of the chief White House staff advisors saying the president has unlimited power when the whole creation of the United States was to rebel against the idea of a individual with unlimited power, a king, in the first place. And we saw the No Kings protest a couple months ago. There's another one coming up in a little over a week on October 18th. And everybody needs to go and protest this because the president is not a king, he's not an autocrat, and he doesn't have plenary authority, regardless of what Stephen Miller says.